welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let's get you the top stories first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tells Parliament that nation cannot let farmers die, seeks collective resolve to tackle problems. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley to move the Goods and Services Tax Constitution Amendment Bill in Lok Sabha for discussion and passage. Bill likely to be put to vote on 27th of April. Centre assures Supreme Court it won't appoint new judges till it gets the green signal to the law enabling the National Judicial Appointments Commission. Question mark over use of US drones. President Obama apologizes after strike kills 2 aid workers held hostage by Al-Qaeda. First up, the day's biggest story. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will move the Goods and Services Tax Constitution Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha today for discussion and passage. Now, 4 hours have been allotted for discussion on the Constitution 122nd Amendment Bill 2014. But the bill is likely to be put to vote on 27th of April. Now, being a constitution amendment, the bill have to be passed with a 2/3 majority in both houses of Parliament. The government is confident of getting the numbers in Parliament. Many deliberations with political parties and state finance ministers have already taken place on the bill. Although some states have raised the issue of compensation, the Modi government is making an all-out effort to get GST in place and implement it from 1st of April 2016.
The government has been toying with the idea of pushing several reforms, and I think GST is one of the major reforms. The particular legislation was already introduced in the House in December, and the Business Advisory Committee has allotted time for it. And I think there is a general consensus with the states as far as the first stage of the bill is concerned. It's a 3-stage bill, which is the GST bill, and I presume that tomorrow the GST discussion would be taken up in the House.
So what does this bill really mean? Let's get a perspective. Mr. MC Purohit, who is the President and Director of Public Economics and Policy Research, is now joining us. Good morning, Mr. Purohit, and thank you so much for joining us here on Rajya Sabha TV. Now, Mr. Purohit, the thing is that the Modi government is making an all-out really effort to get GST in place and implement it from 1st of April 2016. But for people like you and me, what does it really mean?
You see, this reform is very important reform for the overall tax system of the country. Unlike the reform that was made in 90s and the early 2002 through the introduction of state VAT for the sales tax at the state level and excise duty to be converted into sand VAT, this reform also takes into account the services which are presently being levied only by the central government. So when both goods and services are included in the system, it would not cascade at all for the overall economy. In other words, consumer will pay the amount of tax that the government will get, and in effect the consumer will pay less price. So from the point of a consumer, it becomes a tax which reduces the prices of the commodity. From the point of the government, it increases the base of the tax. So all goods and services are taxed by central government as well as by the state government. Unlike in other countries where the reform was made in one go, we could not do it because our constitutional lists of union and state were different. So as a second major step in reform and commodity taxes, we are now introducing a system of goods and services tax. In addition to removing cost-cutting effect, this tax will also make India one country. Today we are bifurcated in 29 countries because of CST. When CST is levied, when goods go from one state to another tax is there, so consumer pay more on that commodity. Unlike other countries where there is no tax on any interstate movement, also it will make the country competitive in the international market. You know, today when commodities are imported from out of the country, they bear no amount of tax. But when our goods go out of the country, it bears some amount of tax of CST as well as some tax on services, etc., which cascades for the system.
Right, Mr. Purohit, now the government is saying that this is going to be the biggest tax reform since 1947. Do you agree with that?
You see, as I said, we made a major reform in 1990 and 2002 when the state VAT was introduced. But it was not a major reform, it was a reform. It was a reform in the state tax system and it's a reform in the central tax system. But there was no integration of the two taxes. So it's going to be a major reform because now we would not have sales tax, we would not have excise duty, we will not have service tax, we will have just one tax on all commodities in all over the states. So it would be very convenient for the taxpayer to pay the tax. It would also be convenient for the government to collect the tax, and it would also have major economic consequences for the companies which have trade in all the states.
Also, Mr. Purohit, the numbers in Parliament are going to be important here because it is a constitution amendment, and which means that it will be passed. So it has to be passed with a 2/3 majority in both houses of Parliament. Now, BJP has issued a whip to its members, but do you think the numbers should be a problem for government?
I don't think so, because the empowered committee of the state finance minister is working a forum to bring unanimity in the tax system reform that we are making. You see, all last many years we have been working on this, and now there is almost unanimity among all the parties. Different types of government have been there. When BJP was there, we started reforming these systems. Then UPA government came, the reforms continued. And now the BJP has come again, reforms are continuing. And I think this being a major reform with no political problems of the center or the state or the BJP or the government, the major problems were autonomy of the state and buoyancy of the tax system. These have been sorted out in the 122nd Amendment Bill. So I think there should be no major problem at the Parliament or at the state level when it has to be passed by the state assemblies.
But at the same time, some states have raised the issue of compensation. Do you think that's a valid point, really?
You see, as I said, the states were worried about autonomy of the tax and also buoyancy of the tax system. Basically, this really means that states should not get revenue less than what they are getting today through state VAT. So the state government have already been, committed to give compensation for 3 years. They are asking for 5 years, and some of them are asking for many years. But my feeling is that as it happened in the case of sales tax, when we converted sales tax into state VAT, states got much more revenue than they were really thinking in the later years. Initially there was loss, but in the years to come, the revenue from state VAT has increased substantially. So I feel, and the studies that have been undertaken also indicate that revenue loss may be initially, not in later years.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Purohit, for joining us here on Rajya Sabha TV and sharing your perspective on that story. Let's move on in the bulletin now. The National Judicial Appointments Commission is likely to be constituted before 11th of May. But the Centre told Supreme Court it will not appoint new judges till the court gives the green signal to the law enabling the commission. The government said this to a constitution bench hearing the matter yesterday. It also disclosed that 2 eminent persons who will be the members of the 6-member NJAC will be nominated soon. On Wednesday, the Constitution Bench expressed concern as to who will take care of immediate issue of the judiciary while the validity of NJAC law is being decided. In particular, it wanted to know what will happen to the many additional judges in high courts whose terms will end before the Constitution Bench decides this issue. And in other news, outside Parliament, the alleged suicide by the farmer in a Delhi rally had a sharp echo. Now, amid protests against the Aam Aadmi Party alleging inaction to stop the tragedy and calls not to politicize it, investigations also got underway into numerous questions around the incident. Here is more.
The morning after the alleged public suicide, protest rallies by the Youth Congress and BJP workers, both slamming the Aam Aadmi Party for insensitivity in its approach to the tragedy. Party workers attacked Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal for continuing with the rally despite the incident and what they termed looking at it purely in political terms.
आम आदमी पार्टी के नेता के तौर पे अरविंद केजरीवाल साहब को उसके सुसाइड करने के बावजूद अपना भाषण उन्होंने जारी रखा। कोई संवेदना उस वक्त उन्होंने दिखाई नहीं। अगर उस वक्त वो भाषण रोककर जाकर अपील कर लेते तो शायद एक आम आदमी की जान बच सकती थी।
कांग्रेस पार्टी ये मांग करती है कि इसकी जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी होनी चाहिए, एक हाई कोर्ट जज के द्वारा कमीशन ऑफ इंक्वायरीज एक्ट के तहत, ताकि इसकी पूरी की पूरी निष्पक्ष जांच करी जा सके।
Despite calls not to politicize the death, a blame game continues to rage among parties across the political spectrum, fingers being pointed at alleged anti-farmer policies of the government to callousness by the Aam Aadmi Party. On its part, the AAP announced compensation for the deceased farmer as it hit out, claiming it had been let down by the Delhi police controlled by the centre. Party leaders called it a deliberate conspiracy by the centre to shift the blame.
कल जिस तरह से चैनल्स ने बाकी चीजें चलाई, चैनल अपनी वो सब वीडियो फुटेज भी चलाएगा, हमारे पास तो है ही लेकिन आपके पास ज्यादा थी, जिसमें बार बार संजय भाई मैं लगातार हम कह रहे थे पुलिस क्या काम कर रही है, पुलिस कहाँ है। जब वो चढ़ रहा था तब हम बार बार कह रहे थे। देश के माननीय गृह मंत्री जी ने लोकतंत्र की सर्वोच्च संस्था संसद के अंदर खड़े होकर अभी एक ऐसा झूठ बोला। गृह मंत्री जी ने कहा कि दिल्ली पुलिस को अपना काम नहीं करने दिया गया, दिल्ली पुलिस को उतारने नहीं दिया गया, जबकि कल ही दिल्ली पुलिस के स्पेशल सीपी श्री मीणा जी ने कहा कि उतारने का काम हमारा नहीं। तो देश के गृह मंत्री जो बोल रहे हैं, दिल्ली पुलिस कुछ और बोल रही है।
The Delhi Lieutenant Governor and Police Chief met Home Minister Rajnath Singh this morning on the probe. Issues like whether the death was a suicide or an accident, whether it was instigated by the crowd, and the man's background are likely to be the focus of the probe.
कल का जो दुखद इंसिडेंट था उसके बारे में एक रिपोर्ट हमने गृह मंत्रालय को सौंपी है। मैं किसी भी आरोप के ऊपर में जो है अपना अभी विचार व्यक्त नहीं करना चाहूँगा, क्योंकि अभी मामला अंडर इन्वेस्टिगेशन है। इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंप्लीट हो जाने के बाद में जो भी फैक्ट्स सामने आएंगे उसके बारे में आपको जानकारी दे दी जाएगी।
Deceased farmer Gajendra Singh was cremated in his hometown Dausa in Rajasthan on Thursday. It remains unclear to what extent he himself faced losses from the unseasonal rains. Watchers say another aspect to be seen ahead is to what extent Gajendra Singh becomes the face of the anti-land bill agitation. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, the shocking public death, allegedly suicide by the farmer at the Aam Aadmi Party rally on Wednesday, dominated proceedings in the Lok Sabha yesterday as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the farmer's suicide has been a matter of concern for years, asking political parties to look beyond differences to resolve the issue. The opposition stepped demands for a judicial probe into the incident.
Farmer suicides in focus during 0 hour in the Lok Sabha, an age-old issue that hit the limelight after the shocking death in public of a farmer on Wednesday. The Prime Minister himself spoke on the matter in the House, assuring the government was ready to listen to all suggestions from all quarters towards resolving the long-standing problem.
मैं इस सदन की पीड़ा के साथ अपने आप को जोड़ते हुए, हम सब दल कोई भी हो, देश बहुत बड़ा होता है। किसानों की इस समस्या का समाधान का रास्ता हमको खोजना है और मैं इस विषय में खुले मन से जो भी सुझाव आए आप जरूर बताइए।
Earlier, Home Minister Rajnath Singh briefed the House on developments and the probe, saying investigations had been handed over to the Delhi Police Crime Branch. Singh said the Delhi Police had made an effort to rescue farmer Gajendra Singh after he climbed the tree, but could not save him. He also raised the need for alternate employment for debt-hit farmers.
मैं चाहूंगा कि इस संबंध में भी हमको विचार करना चाहिए कि इतनी बड़ी पॉपुलेशन 58% का कंट्रीब्यूशन जीडीपी में मात्र 14% क्यों रह गया है अथवा वह क्यों घटता जा रहा है लगातार।
The opposition said the incident highlighted the plight of the farmer and the need to change the conditions in which he lives. The Congress called for a judicial probe into the incident, saying numerous questions remain unanswered.
जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी इसके बारे में कराएंगे, क्योंकि यहाँ पर चीफ मिनिस्टर एक हैं, अब आपने भी इसको मान लिया है, तो इसके लिए जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी कीजिए। अगर आपके पुलिस के तहत इंक्वायरी करेंगे तो एक तरफा इंक्वायरी आएगा, सत्यता बाहर नहीं आएगी।
Actually, the National Crime Records Bureau data had revealed that a farmer commits suicide in every 30 minutes. I don't believe that this is an apolitical issue. If this is not a political issue, then what is the political issue? This is happening in the last 25 years, and this is the direct result of neoliberal policies pursued by various successive governments in the last 25 years.
Yes. How can the society become so callous and unsympathetic and unresponsive? Again, that thing has happened here in Delhi yesterday.
The Aam Aadmi Party said the deceased farmer was a victim of the system. Several MPs said the incident only highlights the potential additional trouble to farmers from the land acquisition bill. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And a discussion on plight of farmers and spate of suicides committed by them was initiated in the upper house yesterday after the government agreed to Leader of Opposition Ghulam Nabi Azad's notice under Rule 267 for suspension of business of the house. Opposition members sought immediate relief measures for farmers from the government, urging a reconsideration of the land acquisition bill.
Discussions on farmers' plight and suicides finally got underway in the upper house after wrangling over procedures for nearly an hour. Leader of Opposition Ghulam Nabi Azad, who had given a notice under Rule 267 for suspension of business of the house on this issue, accused the government of not doing enough for the farmers.
आप उसका अनाज खरीदोगे नहीं, आपकी उसकी जमीन ले लोगे ऑर्डिनेंस के जरिए, आप उसको मिनिमम स्पोर्ट प्राइस दोगे नहीं, तो क्या करेगा उसके सामने हत्या करने के बगैर रास्ता क्या है?
Leaders of other opposition parties also sought immediate relief for farmers in terms of compensation, increase in MSP and quick payout by insurance companies.
आपने अपने चुनाव घोषणा पत्र में कहा कि मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस तय करते वक्त लागत मूल्य से 1.5 गुना उसको तय किया जाएगा। क्या ऐसा हुआ? 3% भी नहीं बढ़ाया, 50% बढ़ाने की तो बात दूर रही।
सीधी राहत पहुंच सकती है इंश्योरेंस कंपनी से। यानी मैं सुनकर के हैरान हूं कि उन्होंने कहा कि 2 करोड़ केवल मिला और ले लिया है 2000 करोड़। ऐसा अन्याय जो है वो इतने वर्षों से चल रहा है।
Former Agriculture Minister Sharad Pawar also asked the minister to ensure quick implementation of relief measures and urged it to shun arrogance on the land acquisition bill.
ये negotiation dialogue, ये language, ये किसी के साथ बातचीत करने की लैंग्वेज नहीं है, इसमें arrogance, और मुझे लगता है कि ये arrogance की बात मत करिए। इश्यूज होते हैं, समस्या पैदा होती है, देश के सामने संकट आता है, अल्टीमेटली हम सब लोग और हम सब लोगों की जिम्मेदारी इस देश का गरीब आदमी को मदद करने के लिए हम यहाँ आकर बैठे हैं।
Members from the Treasury benches defended the government on the land acquisition bill, even as they expressed concern on the plight of farmers.
कि ये केवल एक प्रोपोगंडा किया जा रहा है कि किसानों की जमीन ली जा रही है, किसानों की जमीन ली जा रही है, केवल एक हल्ला मचाया जा रहा है। वो भी जो कानून बना है पिछली गौ सरकार ने बनाया, वो भी अच्छा कानून है, लेकिन उसमें कुछ सुधार किए जा रहे हैं, तो सुधार की गुंजाइश तो हमेशा रहती है।
The discussion will continue on Friday, after which the government will give its reply. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
And right now we'll take a very short break. Now all the international news after a short break. Stay with us.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha Television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha Television, democracy at work.
Welcome back after the break. Now, an American and an Italian aid worker were killed, sparking yet another debate on the use of drones in the U.S. military operations. The two victims were killed in the strike on a compound of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan in January this year. It has put unprecedented pressure on the Obama administration over its drone policy. Take a look.
A huge blow to the Obama administration. Deaths of US and Italian aid workers Warren Weinstein and Giuliano Loporto, held captive by Al-Qaeda, became the first known instance when a drone strike killed innocent hostages. US President Barack Obama publicly apologized for the incident.
As President and as Commander-in-Chief, I take full responsibility for all our counterterrorism operations, including the one that inadvertently took the lives of Warren and Giovanni. I profoundly regret what happened. On behalf of the United States government, I offer our deepest apologies to the families. As soon as we determined the cause of their deaths, I directed that the existence of this operation be declassified and disclosed publicly.
The incident underscores the limits of United States intelligence and the risk of unintended consequences in executing a targeted killing program.
We believed that this was an Al-Qaeda compound, that no civilians were present, and that capturing these terrorists was not possible. And we do believe that the operation did take out dangerous members of Al-Qaeda. What we did not know, tragically, is that Al-Qaeda was hiding the presence of Warren and Giovanni in this same compound. It is a cruel and bitter truth that in the fog of war generally, and our fight against terrorists specifically, mistakes, sometimes deadly mistakes, can occur.
The family of the Italian Loporto is in mourning. Several bouquets of flowers and ribbons adorned a tree outside the home of the Weinstein family.
È molto affranta al dolore, giustamente.
Gli hanno detto qualcosa?
No, niente. È venuto a sapere anche, c'è persone della Farnesina comunque che le sta dando le notizie, insomma.
The drone strikes are the central element of Obama's counter-terror strategy program. The White House has launched a review of the strikes to see if changes are needed to the drone program. However, it made it clear that the program will not be curtailed in response to the incident. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And the European Union has decided to triple its funds for rescue operations aimed at migrant boats in the Mediterranean. Now, this was announced at a crisis meeting in Brussels on Thursday. The summit was called to decide steps to prevent disasters like the deadly migrant boat capsize tragedy in Libya last Saturday.
We have agreed to triple the resources available to Triton, our border mission in the central Mediterranean, and to enhance its operational capability. The mission will continue to carry out its mandate and respond to distress calls where necessary.
Days after the tragic boat capsize in Libya, the European Union is stepping up rescue efforts for Mediterranean migrants. World leaders decided to destroy vessels used by smugglers and streamline asylum processing and returning failed seekers to where they came from.
Ce qui fera que les moyens budgétaires dédiés à Triton seront portés à 120 millions, ce qui correspond au montant qui fut affecté.
World leaders welcomed the move. Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi said it was a big step forward for Europe. A UN resolution will have to be passed in order to destroy smugglers' ships. Italian Prime Minister sought support from France, UK and Spain for the efforts.
David Cameron, Angela Merkel e François Hollande li abbiamo ricevuti nella delegazione italiana e con loro abbiamo discusso di una serie di questioni. Tra l'altro con Francia e Regno Unito abbiamo chiesto a Francia e Regno Unito abbiamo chiesto il sostegno per.
But what's emerging is what we need, which is a comprehensive plan going after the criminal gangs, going after the traffickers, going after the owners of the boats, potentially taking action there as well, and stabilizing the countries from which these people are coming.
Wir wollen schnell handeln. Das heißt, wir werden die finanziellen Ressourcen, die für die zuständigen Missionen von Frontex aufgebracht werden, verdreifachen.
Several countries, including France, Britain and Germany, said that they will send ships and helicopters to strengthen Operation Triton, a EU frontier operation of Italy. The triple boost in EU funding of some 120 million euros has been criticized as well. Analysts say it brings back spending up to about the level of Mare Nostrum, an Italian-run search and rescue operation that was cancelled in 2014. A few EU members said Mare Nostrum was too expensive and expressed concerns it was encouraging more migrants. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
News from the Middle East now. Well, violence and airstrikes continue in Yemen despite Saudi Arabia's announcement on Tuesday that it was ending its initial air campaign. Now, Saudis and the Houthis are talking in fact publicly about the need to move on from the conflict, but it remains unclear if they can reach any kind of agreement. The deafening sounds of bombing across Yemen's cities, signaling that the war is nowhere near its end. Despite Saudi Arabia announcing on Tuesday that it was ending its initial air campaign, airstrikes targeted Houthi-held positions in Ib, Lahij, Marib, Taiz, among others. Fighting between Houthi rebels and forces loyal to President Hadi also intensified in the flashpoint city of Aden.
So now we enter a new phase where the objective of this new phase is to continue to protect the civilians in Yemen from takeover by the Houthis, to counter any aggressive moves by the Houthis in Yemen, and to work on enhancing the flow of humanitarian assistance to Yemen and ease the work of international humanitarian organizations in Yemen.
The intense fighting prevented peace talks from starting. Houthis say they will participate only after the airstrikes stop completely, while the government says Houthis must lay down arms first. Previous talks between the rebels and the government of Yemeni President Hadi failed in January after rebels attacked presidential palace in Sana'a.
لا يوجد أي تواصل في الوقت الحاضر. ما يقوم به الميليشيات الحوثية وميليشيات علي عبد الله صالح هو جريمة في حق الشعب اليمني كله. لا يوجد هناك أي تواصل حتى يلقوا بالسلاح ويستسلموا.
The 4 weeks of military campaign has already caused hundreds of civilian casualties in Yemen. Much of the country's creaking infrastructure, including its health services, has collapsed. A humanitarian crisis continues to unfold as the Houthis' demands for a major say in any government of national unity seem unlikely to be met by their Saudi-backed opponents. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Well, that's all in today's Breakfast News. Thanks for watching.